War Report family, what's up? It's your man Ike Jones here. We are going into another weekend tailgate. In-state prospect Jeremiah Cobb decides to stay at home with Auburn. And, man, we're going to talk about some of this conference upheaval we got going on. All that and more in this edition of the Weekend Tailgate. Let's do it.
You are now listening to a War Report Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by
Athletic Architect.
It's your boy, Ike Jones. Be real. C-Dog. Mike G. Get ready. Sit on back as we bring you the War Report Weekend Tailgate.
What's up, and War Eagle War Report family? Your man Ike Jones here, stepping in, doing hosting duties. Our guy C-Dub has the weekend off. Happy birthday to him. It was his birthday just recently, and it is 4th of July weekend, so happy Independence Day to all of y'all out there. Fellas, how we feeling today?
Pretty good. Got some
pretty good
news.
That's what's up. Well, we are about to jump into the weekend tailgate. Of course, brought to you by our show sponsor, Athletic Architects. Buildahouse.com is where you want to go to check out all things Athletic Architects. We definitely appreciate everybody for jumping in and joining us today. If you don't know already, man, we need you guys to make sure that you're doing a couple of things for us. We want to make sure that you are sharing the video. So hashtag get your weight up if you're sharing that on social media, on Twitter, on Instagram, doesn't matter. Just let somebody know to come join the best weekend tailgate since we've ever had them, because this is the best one we're ever going to have right here. The best one. I'm calling it right now. The best one ever. Also, if you're in here, make sure that you are liking the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't just come in here and get all this stuff. I mean, it's free. You might as well subscribe to what we got going on. Outside of that, man, we got some great content coming up, and you need to become a member of the War Report. Mike G, tell the people why that needs to happen.
Listen, become a member of the War Report. Become a patron. Our patron members help keep us going, guys. If you haven't been a patron, you've been missing early access to a lot of these great interviews. So become a patron. Lots of perks during the season. We're going to have a bunch of film reviews. It's going to be patron only. We have some chats that will be patron only. So become a patron. Join our community. Speaking of interviews, Marquise Burks is our next interview. Now, if you're a patron, you have access to this already. Otherwise, Thursday for everybody else, this interview will go live. A dynamic conversation with a great young man. So many great young men that we've got in this program. So we're bringing you guys exclusive access directly to them to hear from them about how their offseason went and what kind of season we can expect. So check that out on Thursday. Guys, we're giving away T-shirts. So hashtag get your weight up. As always, in the comments, this is sponsored by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services or War Eagle Oil. This is Weagle War Damn Eagle Kick 'em in the butt big blue shirt. Just in case you were wondering, that's not just a random mishmash of letters. It means something to the Auburn family. You can win this t-shirt. Hashtag get your weight up. You got to be around at the 1 hour mark for the drawing. So don't miss that.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, fellas, let's get into the conversation today. We've been talking a lot recently about recruiting. The last couple of shows we've talked about recruiting. We had our guy B-Matt on talking about the potential to get more recruits in, and Auburn's having a slow recruiting, all the things people panicking about, right? But as B-Matt predicted, we were able to land a new recruit here. Jeremiah Cobb commits, verbally at least, to Auburn to come here in the next class. Another running back to add to the stable of running backs we now have. How are we feeling about the commitment of one Jeremiah Cobb? I will start with you, B. Will. How you feeling about it, man?
The rich get richer. And in this case, that's the position group on our team that is probably the richest. We've got a bell cow in Tank Bigsby, the most talented player on the team probably since 2020. And I don't even think that's an exaggeration. I think that's probably just fact. He's the one constant, the one piece that even though we thought we had a chance of losing him, Of all the pieces we've had, we've lost in the last 6 months, that was the one that I think scared everybody the most. We knew we were losing some production with other guys, but that was the one that's like, wait a minute, no, not Tank. And we got to keep him. We got a gem in Jarquez. I don't want to say he was a gem. It's just that other people weren't willing to give him a try at the position he wanted to play, and we were.
Right.
And it turned out, look, he was right. Jarquez was right. He wanted to play running back. He's a running back. And I haven't seen Damari Alston yet. I'm going to reserve judgment until he hits the field. I mean, all indications say he is a star player in waiting, in the making. So I'm going to take Cadillac's word. I'm going to take the recruiter's word and say, listen, man, he knows what he's doing. Cadillac has been a star back. He's seen star backs. He's recruited now at least 2 star backs, because of the ones that have gotten on the field have been very good or great. This is what we needed, right? We need a position. I think it says more than anything, it doesn't matter what your win-loss is. Be good at something. If it's running back, put those guys in the league, prepare them for success at the next level, give them a place to shine, and we do let our running back shine here. Not as good as we could if our offensive line was better at run blocking, but it doesn't mean they're not going to get their shots. With his poor season as we had last year, Tank Bigsby was coming up on the preseason all list last year, and he's even higher on those lists this year. You can come here and be a star and have the NFL eyeballing you at that position. We have at least that much locked down as far as offensive recruiting, the running back position. So this adds to it. I'm happy for Caddy. I'm happy for us. And it doesn't seem like we're going to have to worry about running back for a really long time.
Does seem as if we've got a good stable of backs once again. Let's just look at a little bit about Jeremiah Cobb here, and then I'll let you weigh in, Mike G. 4-star running back right here out of Montgomery, Alabama, attending Montgomery Catholic, coming up in the class of 2023, 5'11", 185. So he's more of a scat back type. I've seen comparisons to him and CJ Spiller, the former great from Clemson, as far as his running style. He's a speedster, shifty back. But Mike G, what are you feeling about the commitment of Jeremiah Cobb? And to you, what does that signal to the Auburn fan base?
The most important thing about this commitment is that it's out of the state of Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Getting an in-state recruit was important. Now, we've said it a lot over the last few weeks. This is supposed to be the best class, or at least one of the best classes of recruits coming out of the state of Alabama in the history of recruiting. These kids are good. There's a lot of talent in state and at home. We have a geographical advantage over a lot of schools in the country in that Auburn sits in a recruiting hotbed. We do not have to go far to find talent, so it's really, really important that you land talent close to home. And I think a lot of people were worried about whether we could do that or not. Now, this was a problem under the last coach. Was Saban got who he wanted in the state, and then whoever was left over wasn't choosing Auburn.
Yeah.
We weren't getting a ton of recruits in state. So this is an important shot over the bow, I think, for this coaching staff to say that we're putting in the work. This guy doesn't choose Auburn unless there was an aggressive effort to get him. And I think we've seen a lot of what those efforts have looked like over the last few weeks and a couple months. But this was good. This was a great pickup. And they've got to start to recruit the offensive side of the ball better.
Yeah.
When you go back and you look at all those previous recruiting classes that were ranked in the top 10, they were defense heavy, and a lot of the offensive guys busted out.
Right.
Either transferred or never saw the field or got in trouble. And going out and getting star players that are actually going to play is going to be really important. I took a look at his tape. He is a true all-purpose back. Like, this kid can catch it out of the backfield.
Yeah.
He can go between the tackles. He's got the speed to get out to the edge. This is a pretty good pickup, I think, for them to get recruiting momentum started going into the season. And then for other kids, like, guys in state know who this kid is, and him choosing Auburn says, hey, like, I don't know, man. Like it's like walking down the street with your girlfriend, and other girls are looking just because you got a girlfriend, right? Like, you got a hot girl on your arm, other girls are gonna look, and we need players to come into the fold, and yeah, Brian, we need players to be in the fold to signal to other good players that Auburn is a pretty good place to be. You know, so this first step to having a good recruiting class is getting one. So start getting in these good recruits. Jeremiah Cobb, excellent pickup. I can't stress enough. My biggest thing is it's in state. Like we have to start to take back the state. Because Saban has owned it, and then other schools have come in and rated our talent.
Yeah,
Clemson has come in and rated our talent. You know, these other schools are coming in, they're rated Alabama talent. Man, get out of our backyard and keep these kids at home.
Yeah, and it was clear from talking to Coach Harsin. If you guys haven't had an opportunity to watch the Coach Harsin interview, first and foremost, I have no idea what you're doing with your life. But secondly, it was clear to him that their staff is prioritizing making sure that the state of Alabama is going to have talent at Auburn University, right? Like there's going to be guys from Alabama playing at Auburn University in the fall. He said it himself. He's like, listen, we want to win the state. And then he also emphasized how much they wanted to go into the state of Georgia and continue to have talent that's playing here. So it's something that's definitely not lost on the coaching staff that they need to be able to win in those areas. And this is a good one. I mean, this is not just a player from the state, right? It's one of the best in this recruiting class, the best running back by pretty much every metric. I think he's probably like the third overall in the state or something like that. I have to go back and look as far as overall players in the state, but still, probably the best running back that you can get out of the state coming to Auburn. One of the things I wanted to ask you guys about is leadership in the locker room, specifically in the running back room. One of the things that I noted during this offseason was the workouts. If you've seen him, Tank Bigsby's out there posting his workout videos. He's been working with Brad Lester a lot to get himself together, but he's had Damari Austin out there with him during some of those workouts and them going through drills together. And it seems as if Tank has taken on the responsibility to make sure when he leaves that there are people here who are going to be dynamic behind him. He's not just like, hey, I got to be great. We need other people in this running back room to be great as well. And I would assume Jarquez Hunter would have been out there as well if he weren't hurt. But what I want to ask you about is, do you feel like this running back room is going to have the leadership necessary once Tank Bigsby steps away? Because I don't know if Jarquez is that kind of guy, but like, how do you feel like going forward? We've got the talent. Where's the leadership going to come
Yeah,
from?
I'll tell you, some of the off-season training things that they're doing are making those leaders. You know, I told the story about the vests and, while they're running stadiums and picking up the vests and the things that they're doing to challenge guys to step up and be leaders. I mean, that wasn't just for show.
Yeah.
Now, if you were one of those guys who takes the lead, and Tank has been one of those guys, he's setting that example. Those guys, from what I understand, are pretty tight, and they're going to bring these other guys into the fold. Man, it's leadership is improving. Team culture is improving.
Yeah.
And, they just have to go out there. And the way to keep it together is to go out there and win football games. Know your assignment, do your job.
Yeah.
So I think the running back room is going to be the least of our worries here over the next few years. And there was a time where we just used to put out 1,000-yard backs like it was nothing.
Yeah.
It seems like even our average backs would go for 1,000 yards. And I hope they get back to that as well, too. I know Harsin certainly wants to be a downhill running team. You can run the ball. You can control the clock. You can keep the ball out of harm's way. You can control a game with a good run game. And I think they're gonna have that. Even Zach Calzada, during an interview with him, you had asked him, Mike, about the running backs, and he was very happy and optimistic about the running back. He loves the running back room that we have, all the way down to the new guys. So adding Jeremiah Cobb to it certainly, I think, builds on that. And what I love about this pickup the most is we're getting a guy we don't have to throw out there game one and ask him to save our season. This is the pipeline that same pipeline we're trying to build at quarterback.
Right.
We're doing it at running back right now. You've got Tank, Jarquez, Damari Alston, and now you're bringing in this Jeremiah Cobb kid. And it should be a steady stream of really good running backs at Auburn, assuming that these kids, buy in, stay healthy, and do the work. So
yeah,
we should be good at running back for years to come.
I mean, and that's definitely a thing that, we need to make sure that we're trying to do. I mean, listen, we remember a time where we were lamenting the running back room, being like, man, we don't have enough running backs. And now it seems like we're starting to build those coffers. Same thing we used to talk about the quarterback room, man. It's just a different room in a lot of places. Defensive back, it seems like we've got an abundance of guys in that room. Defensive line, we just got abundance of guys in that room. The only place I feel like we just need to get better in is the offensive line. I feel like we're doing pretty good in the rest of them. But what are you feeling about as far as what this signals for the future, and then the potential leaders that might step up in that running back room?
I'm with Mike in one way, in that I think the culture now is going to build the leadership, and it's not going to be dependent on what it usually is, which is you're the quarterback, so you're a leader, so step into it, even if that's not who you are. That a lot gets made about that with guys on the pro level. Like, well, can he be the leader? Really, you get dubbed the leader because you play the most important position on the team. All right. So you can absolutely kill your team with your play, or you can push your team over the top with your play. So you are functionally a leader by default. Now, whether you actually have the emotional and mental ability to actually rally guys around you and with you and bring them together, that's a whole nother story. That those are things that you bring to the table. That's your personality. It gets built up over your time and your experience, both as a player and as a human being. You either have that or you don't. You can be a great player and still not be a leader. And what they'll say is, oh, well, he led by example, which means he's a great player, but he's not much of a rah-rah guy. So he just did his job and other guys took notice. He set the example for him and other guys followed suit. And that is easy to do when, number one, you're having a lot of success. If your team's winning a lot, but your quarterback's quiet, but he's going out there and throwing for 400 yards a game, what do I have to say? I'm be where I need you to be, and then I'm going to get you the ball. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is a great leader. I just think he's an outstanding quarterback, and so he's kind of gotten the chance to shape Green Bay and tell them what he wants and doesn't want, and everybody kind of makes it about A-Rod being a leader. I don't think he's a leader. I think he's just great, and you know that as long as he's out there, you're going to do a lot of winning. And that's it. Now, does that make him a great leader? No. I think Tim Tebow was probably a great leader on the field. He wasn't that good a quarterback. So those are two completely different things. And I don't think you can manufacture it. But one thing I do think you can manufacture with culture, and I do think Brian Harsin is installing that culture, is accountability, work ethic. Because you can, as the coach, say, if I don't see you working to my standard, you're not going to get on the field. And he did that last year. And everybody who stayed seems to have gotten that message. And they are stepping up to the plate right now because, and again, but you need that year. You need the year to go, yeah, you're better, but you're going to sit because you're not working hard enough.
Yeah.
You could save us. You probably could have won us 2 games out there, guy, but you're not going to see the field because you didn't accept the responsibility I put on you before the season started. Off whatever that is.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I liked about the videos that I saw with Tank, right? This is him working out with his personal trainer, right? Like this isn't him in the facility with the coaches. They're working out themselves and, they're going through a drill, and Tank doesn't seem like a rah-rah guy, but as they're going through the drill and Damari Alston finishes his rep, he goes to sit down and Tank turns to him. He's like, hey, don't sit down, bro.
Yeah.
He was like, no, we don't sit down while we're working out. What are we doing? Like that's the type of, like, you don't have to be a rah-rah guy to like you said, will instill the right culture. The culture is we're working hard out here and we don't sit down between reps.
Right. Yeah. They've got, listen, I believe that when you combine dynamic talent with hard work, that's what equals superstars. Guys who have the raw talent but still don't shy away from the work, because we see it so often. A guy like Jeremiah Cobb comes in, he's dominating high school right now. He can't be touched. And they think that they can just lean on their talent at the next level. And you can't do that. You can't do that. There are guys who would be Pro Bowlers in the NFL level if they had better work ethic. guys who would be all SEC if they just had better work ethic because they have all the talent. Right. So the culture that they're setting, the hard work culture that they're setting, combined with more kids like this, I think catapults us near the top. The top a third of the league consistently. This is how you compete. You need guys. You need guys who can go out and do that. They're not accepting anything less at Bama or Georgia right now. You're not loafing it up in Tuscaloosa and getting on the field. Yeah. Now they've got other guys who can step in, obviously, because they recruit a 5-star every 3 days. But when you think about it, it's just there's so much competition there because everybody has talent. The only thing that really is going to separate you on that squad is the way that you work, because they're all supremely talented. Yeah, I just think we need more of that in this program, and getting a kid like this, I'm so happy that we got, because people were screaming, "Oh, when are we going to land a recruit? We're a poverty program. We don't have any recruits," and I just felt like it was an overreaction. They'll start to come in.
Yeah, definitely an overreaction.
Yeah, so this is hopefully one of the first dominoes in a long line of kids who are going to eventually commit to Auburn, and I hope that they get. B. Matt was telling us when he came on last week about how if you don't get to 20 recruits, they rate your class differently. People need to not be so caught up on recruiting. Right. Rankings and ratings. Listen, if you're recruiting
this early, if it were the week before National Signing Day and we were ranked that lowly and we needed a huge number to come in to get then I understand the panic. But today,
and even after it's all said and done, guys, there's very little difference between the 10th ranked class and the 7th ranked class. Very little difference between those classes when you go back and you look at it. Some of it is just one recruit, and you don't even know if that guy's good. It could be a 3. It could just be a 3-star, having one extra 3-star, depending on how many recruits you brought in that cycle. It's more important that you fill the needs that you have than it is that those rankings. People were like, "Well, Kentucky's ranked in front of us in recruiting, and that's unacceptable." And I'm just like, all right, cool. Let's see what they do with those recruits. Let's see how well they evaluated those recruits in a couple years. Right. So talk to me in a couple years after we see how their class panned out versus how our class panned out. That's something that we don't do enough. I feel like it could be a whole business, is just going back and re-ranking recruiting classes and giving people a really easy snapshot of how well people recruited. This was a good pickup. We've heard so much about these in-state recruits, man. I was really happy that one of the first pieces of good news we got was from in the state of Alabama. So I'm looking forward to seeing what this kid will do, but I'm looking forward to not seeing it for about at least a year.
For sure.
Yeah, I don't see him on the field till 2023.
Yeah, and that's one of the things too. Going back to your point about re-ranking classes, as we've gone back and we've revisited some of these classes and talked about the productivity that happened from those classes, I think it's important for us to be able to note, because a lot of people are screaming about where we were ranked and we used to be ranked this and this and that. But then when you go back and look at the productivity from the people who were in those classes, and you're like, I don't look so good in retrospect. That class actually. You had 1 or 2 contributors, and of them, those guys weren't difference makers, right? Let's just be honest about the difference makers that we've recruited. This is the senior class that exists right now, a lot of difference makers. And I don't know that we've had the opportunity. I think the next look back that we're going to do is going to be in that class that's going to have the Derek Hall class, Pritchett is in that class. So those guys are all solid contributors right now. But if you look back the years before that class, and then really a couple years after that class, you're going to see a lot of misses in there.
Yeah, for sure.
You'll see a lot of misses in those classes. And so I think it's important for us to put those things in perspective. It's like the NBA draft, right? They're like, if we had to do this draft over again, who was the actual best pick from this draft? And some of those guys just don't pan out. Like, you know, you look at, they talk about this all the time recently, like who got drafted like 1 or 2 picks in front of Steph Curry in his
It's
draft.
Johnny Flynn.
Oh, he knows the name.
I know,
What?
because every time I look at that, I'm like, it's not just okay. Who got drafted?
It's another
who got
point
drafted
guard.
At point?
Yeah.
Who got drafted at point ahead of arguably the greatest point guard of all time that had Davidson in the Sweet 16? What were you thinking? It's not like Johnny Flynn wasn't even that good in college. He
was
He played
okay.
for Syracuse,
Yeah.
right? He was okay. He didn't. I never saw top 10 out of Johnny Flynn. As a matter of fact, I remember them saying, "Oh, he's going." I'm like, "Why is he going?" He was a freshman. I think he had been out of high school 1 year, and he was okay. It's like, but what were you thinking? Minnesota had a lot of misses, man. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, you say, okay, if we're gonna redo this, looking at all the players that went ahead of Giannis. And maybe some of that's dicey because he's from overseas. You don't know of culture. How is he going to fill out? Because he was a skinny kid. You didn't see this hulking brute that he is now. Maybe you didn't think that translated. But yeah, it's one thing to get really excited about prospects before they hit that field, before they hit your locker room, before they hit campus, and they get all those distractions in their faces. Because a lot of kids, well, I don't know about a lot, plenty of kids fizzle out because they can't survive the whirlwind that is college and popularity, the responsibilities of class, the influences that come from being famous and popular, all the things that now at your disposal. Right. And some of that derails careers. It derails college careers and potentially pro careers. So there's a lot to take into account. One thing I will give Brian Harsin credit for is I think that we will probably have a lot fewer misses now, partly because I couldn't tell you this with any amount of certainty, and I certainly don't want to make up rumors, but what's his name? Under Gus Malzahn, there seemed to be a little bit of, I know this guy is a problem. I know this guy may not bring it like the other guys, but I'm going to be lenient on them and give them a couple extra chances because I know how talented they are. And if I keep reinvesting in this guy and keep giving them another chance or not suspend him if he does something behind the scenes, then it's going to work out for me. Because everybody was saying, "Oh, well, Gus didn't put up with anything. He let that tight end go." And
no, he did put up with stuff.
He put up with plenty.
They did. We just didn't hear about it.
Just to keep the most talented players satiated and on the field is what he did. And the result is what you create inadvertently, and I don't think this was intentional, is a culture where the people coming up know, well, all I have to do is be the best guy in my position, and I can do what I want to do. All I have to do is be that productive, and you're not going to be able to tell me anything because I see this guy who called out of practice or he wasn't going hard or he left early, but he's the best player at his position or on the team, so he can get away with these things, and I'll have my time too, which was the reason a lot of guys right after Gus left was like, wait a minute, but I'm the best here. Why don't you want me on the field? Which is why so many of them were shell-shocked that somebody was like, no, here's the bar. Once you clear the bar, then we'll talk about you hitting the field. And they couldn't do it.
Yeah. And they're not going to hold your hand through it either.
Right.
Right. So they're not going to be, hey, make sure you get the class on time. you know, make sure you're doing the things you're supposed to. Don't make sure you finish your workout. They're not doing that. We've confirmed that. We've talked to them. It is out there for the taking, but you have to go get it. Right. And to Brian's point, Gus had a bleeding heart, but he had a bleeding heart for like, it was just very uneven. Right. I didn't understand some of the guys that got second, third, and fourth chances, and then some of the guys who got one chance seemingly and then got kicked off. So this is, I feel like going into year two, if there was any holdover, because listen, in year one, there were probably some behavior problems that were good players that Harsin put up with to get through the season. Now that he's through the season, I don't think they're going to put up with any of that. They're developing contingency plans at every position, and guys just need to do what they need to do, and then stay ready. This the leadership that Ike was referring to, part of it is going to be about making sure guys continue to work until they're called on. Yeah. Because everybody can't play. Everybody's not going to go out at running back, but you still got to work as if you're the number one. You have to put in that type of effort because you may be called on at some point.
Yeah.
Injuries happen. Poor play happens. There's a lot of things that go on that you might get called on, and the state of readiness needs to be higher as well. And that readiness starts with recruiting, getting guys in like Jeremiah Cobb who are waiting in the wings. And when it's his turn, he's ready. You just never know when you're going to be called on, and you don't want to miss that moment because there's no guarantee that you'll get another shot.
Right.
Some guys get 10 chances to get it right, and then they finally have good careers. Some guys get two. Two is all they get. Some guys one. They put you on the field. You go out there. You drop the pass. You let your quarterback get sacked. You do something stupid, and they may not trust you again because you are already down on the list. I just think the state of readiness needs to be heightened, and that starts with recruiting, getting the right guys in that will be ready, that will put in the work, so that you can, be 3 deep, everywhere, and your season doesn't stop if Tank stops.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's going to be super important because the run game is always going to be crucial, but. As you pointed out, Mike, I think this coaching staff really wants for this run game to be a focal point of how we get things done. So let's jump in here, grab a couple of these comments. You guys have been giving some great comments here. Preston Sanders, happy birthday to you, and definitely a War Damn Eagle to you, man. Appreciate you jumping in here on
Preston.
Your birthday and a holiday weekend. So
happy birthday.
Definitely appreciate that. Our guy Royce Butler says, War Damn Eagle people, glad to be catching y'all live for the first time in a while, watching the War Report and grilling some burgers, dogs, and ribs. Doesn't get much better a way to spend a Sunday. I agree with you. I wish I could grab something off the grill. It's a little rude of you to talk about all the food that you have and I can't get any, but it's all right. You know what I'm saying? Lawrence Robinson, definitely a dope interview from Marquise Burks. Listen, this one it goes live Thursday for everybody. This is a sneaky good interview, though.
Yeah, he's a character. I like that. I like this.
It's a sneaky good interview. It's not gonna have the name isn't gonna be as flashy, as Zach Calzada or some of the other ones that we've gotten, the Coach Harsin interviews. But this is a good interview. I think he gives a good insight as a senior leader on this team into the mindset of what's going on in that, especially the defensive locker room. Just and the culture that's being built right here as a person who has seen both sides of the culture coin from, the transition between coaches. So definitely check that interview out when it goes live. Phil Petway jumps in and said, this kid reminds me of Alvin Kamara as far as his running style, fast, versatile, and stronger than he looks, in reference to Jeremiah Cobb. I think that's an interesting comparison because Kamara is an absolutely phenomenal runner. If he is Kamara style, that's scary hours right there. All right. We got a couple of super chats here. I want to get those. Of course, our guy Jazzy Joe jumps in with the big one here. He's just checking to see if it works, apparently. Chilling with the family. Happy 4th of July.
Hey, it didn't work, Jazzy. Try it again.
He said he's going to catch us on the replay. Be safe. Got his War Report flag. So, yeah, shout out to that. Time to rep some more.
We need a picture of that.
Yeah, for sure. Need a picture of that, Jazzy. Throw that up on Twitter and tag us in that one. Isaac Ritchie jumps in with another one here. I think will really shock some people this year. I saw someone predict us to go 4-8. I hope the team uses this as fuel for the season. I absolutely agree with you that we have the potential to shock some folks. Any thoughts on any of this stuff right here, gentlemen?
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to quarterback. Honestly, that sounds cliche, but 4-8 means we bombed out at quarterback bad. Right, like 4-8.
We can win 5 without good quarterback.
I mean, we won 6 last year with.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had good quarterback play in spurts. Right, we had excellent quarterback performances, certainly during that stretch. But it's going to look different this year. I saw some more tape of Zach Calzada with his coach throwing bombs to Shedrick Jackson. His arm looks good. And Robbie Ashford is waiting in the wings. TJ Finley's still working. I think that we're just marginally better at quarterback next year. I'm confident that whoever takes the wheel is going to be ready, much more ready than we were to start last season.
I mean, listen, the grasp of the offense I don't think anybody can argue TJ Finley understands what he's doing as far as this offense is concerned. He's had the most time in the offense. Zach Calzada, again, if you've missed that interview, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but talked about his readiness to take on this offense because he came from an offense that was very pro style that Jimbo Fisher was putting together. The only difference is terminology. He's trying to figure out, okay, they call this. Okay, that's what this means. He feels like once he gets that terminology down, he'll be solid. And then you've got Robbie Ashford, who is, I think Robbie just has this competitive fire that if you just let him loose on the field, he's gonna go crazy. Just because I don't, and this is not to talk about anybody else's desire. I don't know that anybody wants it more than Robbie. Like, I think Zach Calzada and TJ definitely want it. Like, I don't know that anybody wants it more than him. And it's like, it's one of those things where if he doesn't get it, he's going to be mad at himself. I think Robbie's just got a competitive fire like that, man. So you want guys like that on your team who just want to win so badly. Zach Calzada seems like he's got the business. He's come in to handle business type of thing. And TJ Finley is just kind of like a consummate professional. Like he knows how to say the right things. He's got the charisma. He understands what's going on. So I don't think that we have a bad quarterback in that room. So whoever wins the job, to your point, Mike G, I think will have earned it and we will be better for it.
Yeah, it's at 4-8. Big Game Boomer tagged me in something this morning, asking what our record is going to be, and on Twitter. And I know what the range is. I just hate answering that question now because a lot can happen between now and the start of August. So.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, I people are commenting on some videos about stuff, and I was like, listen, fall will tell all. That's really, I mean, fall camp is where we learn who's ready. I can't tell you that today because, again, will be the first time Zach Calzada will have taken actual practice reps. Right? He wasn't practicing through the entirety of the spring. He was only doing limited workouts during the summer. This will be the first time he'll be quote unquote a full go. So we'll know a little bit more as we get into the fall camp who's ready to go. But we can talk about this a little bit more. We definitely want to get into the second portion of this conversation. If you guys haven't already shared the video, make sure you go ahead and do that. Give us a like and a thumbs up right there and subscribe while you're here. But we're going to pause for a minute and acknowledge a couple of sponsors, and we'll be back to talk a little bit about conference realignment on the second half of this break.
This edition of the War Report is made possible by our generous sponsors. AuburnSports.com. For news and notes on all things Auburn Sports, head over to AuburnSports.com. Athletic Architects. For young athletes looking to secure their financial futures, let Athletic Architects help you start to build your financial house. Head over to BuildTheHouse.com. And our giveaway sponsor, GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. If you want the best in the business at restaurant logistics, check out our friends at GWT2Energy.com.
Hey, listen, become a patron member. We've got lots of great patron content, including early access to interviews. So you don't want to miss that stuff during the season. There'll be film reviews as well as exclusive chats. So there are some things that we do that's patron only, become a part of our community. I mentioned at the top of the broadcast, a part of that perk is getting interviews like the one we did with Marquise Burks early. So check that out. That is live for our patrons right now. It goes live for everybody else Thursday, but dynamic conversation with a great young man. You definitely don't want to miss that. We're giving away a t-shirt as always. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments, brought to you by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services or War Eagle Oil. That's our guy, Walt Taylor, in the comments. Give him a digital high five when you see him for all these giveaways. He's sponsoring that. Check out our podcast, guys. We're on every single podcast platform there is. And we're burning up the podcast charts right now. So you can support us by subscribing. Make sure you set that thing to automatically download your War Report episode. We do podcast exclusive content. So every Wednesday, we're bringing you guys something that you can't get on YouTube on podcast. We're partnered with Lee County Humane Society to raise money for a good cause. So help us hashtag save all the puppies by donating. Go to the About section of our YouTube channel, hit that donate button, and 50 cents on every dollar that you donate will go to the Lee County Humane Society to help them in their mission to save all the puppies. I mentioned that Marquise Burks interview. I'm going to hop back to that for a second. Here's a little bit of what that interview was like.
How are you guys doing from a strength and conditioning standpoint? Do you guys feel stronger?
When it comes to lifting weights, Coach Pitt, he got us doing our thing, man. He loading on the weight.
And you're from Chicago. What made you decide that you wanted to come down south where the big boys play in the SEC, and what led to the decision?
Auburn really it stuck out to me. I felt comfortable here when I came down on my visit. The coaches, they was amazing to me and my family.
What is it like when he's blocking you? Like, is he like your toughest challenge out there on the offensive line? Who's the guy that gives you problems in practice?
Everybody had a day. Had a day. It was really 50-50 all around the board, honestly. Like, in practice, I say the person that gave me the hardest time,
Who's the slowest guy on the team? Listen, now, let me frame this up for you.
I forgot about that one. I forgot about that.
Okay.
He definitely could be faster.
Great interview with Marquise Burks. We had fun talking to him. We have fun talking to all these guys. So we've got some great interviews still left to come. The summer is not over. Building rapport is coming at you.
Yes, indeed. So if you all members of the War Report, you have access to that one right now. It will be going live for everyone else this coming Thursday. But if you are not a member, we've got a bunch of other interviews that you can check out. Zach Calzada is already up right now. So you guys make sure that you go and check that stuff out. All right, let's get into the second half of this conversation. And we are going to talk about realignment of the conferences. There has been a shakeup in the Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Two of the bigger teams in the Pac-12 have decided, as B. Will astutely pointed out, right after the two conferences got together and were like, hey, man, we should form this super conference. Then the Big Ten was like, yeah, we should, by taking your two biggest programs.
Oh, my God.
USC and UCLA have announced their intent to join the Big Ten. And what does this mean, guys? What does this mean as far as, like, why should SEC fans and Auburn fans even care about this? I will start with you on this one, Mike.
Okay, all right. So I was on a Twitter space about conference realignment, and I'll tell you, there were a lot of salty Pac school fans. If you're not a UCLA or a USC fan, you're real salty about this. Number one,
Dallas Schwartz, where you at, man? If you're here, make sure
you Dallas. Yeah,
he's a big USC guy. But go ahead, Mike.
Now, apparently, this was a midnight deal because they were blindsided by this. They were completely blindsided by the exit of these two schools. What it means for the teams that are left in the pack is you're screwed. Because outside of Oregon, what's left over that adds any value to any other conference? From
Oregon State's baseball team.
Good luck. Yeah, I take you for that. Right. I mean, you've got maybe you've got Arizona basketball.
Stanford is their academic reputation combined with like their women's basketball team is usually pretty good.
Right.
Their football is kind of falling off, but their basketball is kind of teetering. Like sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not. I think they're a well-rounded addition because of their academic reputation too. But my fault. Continue. Just wanted to. That's the other somewhat valuable team.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not. I mean, to bolsters my point, it's just not a lot that's attractive. Now, here's what happened. Here's why it's good for the Big Ten. Now you are in the LA TV market, and you've infiltrated a very fertile California recruiting ground as well too. A lot of good players come out of Cali, and if you're left in the pack, you just lost that.
Right.
You just lost that. You just lost probably your most fertile recruiting ground is taking their ball and they're going to play in the Big Ten. Now, let's not get it twisted. This is about everybody's trying to keep up with what the SEC is doing right now.
For sure. Yeah. This is the Big Ten's attempt to try to be the SEC.
Yeah,
or
not a
beat
bad
the SEC.
move.
Yeah.
Not a bad move. I think that these are two solid pickups, especially getting USC, right? I mean, you get brand recognition. The value of their TV contracts are going to go up. The national exposure, everything is good about this pickup for the Big Ten. I think that UCLA maybe doesn't bring the same oomph or whatever, but I think it was a package deal. You take one, you got to take the other.
Well, basketball. Even if they aren't, I mean, I think they were in the Sweet 16 last year, not this current.
Yeah, they're pretty good at basketball.
They're going to be decent. Yeah.
So I think what we're headed towards two super conferences, because the other linchpin in all this realignment is Notre Dame. Everyone's like, what is Notre Dame going to do? Do they join the ACC? I think the ACC is all but dead as well, because what it's really looking like is, I think personally, what it's really looking like is the SEC may continue to expand. You take Clemson and you take Florida State, and you've got your super conference. And then Big Ten will try to get Notre Dame and one other brand. But there's some good to this. The bad, I think that this is going to have, the bad effect is going to be the destruction of traditional geographical rivals.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they're already losing Oklahoma State in a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, Texas A&M went away when they came to the SEC, right? Like, I think what you're going to see is this is going to become a little bit of a mess as far as travel is concerned. If you're USC, if you're on that schedule where you have to go play more away games than you do home games, that's a plane flight and elapsed time lost. You're coming east, you're potentially traveling for 6-7 hours elapsed time on a plane to get where you're going. Then you have to get off the plane, take a bus, probably maybe an hour or two, depending on where you go to play. It's gonna be tough. Have you ever tried to fly into get to Penn State? It's not an easy place to get to.
Yeah, I mean, most of these schools are in, look at Auburn. It's not like you can take a direct flight to Auburn, right?
Right.
Like they're just in these small college towns where that's the only thing that's there is that university. So it's definitely going to be an interesting thing once you talk about, like you said, that's a point I don't think a lot of people are talking about, is the travel schedules of these places, man.
Right.
Like freaking Penn State going to play at USC.
Rutgers going to USC.
Yeah, to
New York to LA.
That is an insane commute to have to try to make.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, when I was living in Phoenix, I didn't come home a whole bunch because it was a 4 or 5 hour plane flight to Atlanta. I'd leave at 7 a.m. in the morning, but I lose 3 hours going to Atlanta. So by the time I touch down, the sun's down, and then I got to get off the plane and drive another hour and a half to 2 hours to my folks' place in Alabama. It's crazy. It's going to be very difficult, I think, from that standpoint for some of these schools. But the money, this is about money.
Yeah.
And the Big Ten had the second richest TV contracts out of the major conferences. This is going to improve that. I think this starts in 2025 for them, which aligns with
24. They said it starts 2024.
24, yeah. It aligns exactly with the end of the current PAC TV deal. So nobody has to pay a penalty to get out if they leave after that. But, again, for your conference commissioners, this is a warning. You need to take the temperature. Oklahoma and Texas essentially did the same thing coming to the SEC. Everyone's, we're so blindsided by this. I'm like, really though? Really? Like, you guys were down to like 8 schools at one point. Your teams are losing opportunities to make it to the playoff. There was one year they didn't have a championship game, I think, or it was just they didn't know if they were going to have enough schools to have a championship game. They've been letting. Their houses have been a mess for a while, but I'll say this, and this is a complete shot at everything, PAC. That has been a lower grade of football for a long time. Now, I had a UW fan get really, really mad at me private group I'm in with Big Game Boomer, and he, anytime we start talking about conferences, it's so funny. Like, we cover Auburn, but when people don't know what to say, they always say, "But Auburn isn't that good." I was like, "We're not talking about Auburn right now. We're talking about Washington." Here's your deal. You live in a overcast, dreary state with almost no high-profile recruits in your backyard.
And the ones that are high profile end up leaving.
Correct. Right. So,
because we talk about what's the kid's name, the wide receiver recruit that went to Ohio State?
Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, he's from up there.
Bye.
He's not at any of those schools in the
he's not a UW, he's not a SC.
Right. Yeah. So
yeah.
I mean, good luck with that. And I don't care. He was like, "Well, we made the playoff." I was like, "What? Yeah, how did that go?" How did that go versus the monster that is Alabama? They beat you in what was a boring game, and this is going to grow. My point about this is all the have-nots are going to fall further behind in these deals. Mm-hmm. This is all it is, man. Because eventually, if you're USC, what incentive do you have to play any of these schools anymore? You got plenty of comp in your conference, schedule some cupcakes, and that's it. This might be the end of the NCAA as we know it. These big conferences, because right now you've got you got Greg Sankey and whoever runs the Big Ten, and they're going to be making decisions. It was funny that they said part of what I read an article that said part of what sparked off this whole deal was the PAC and the ACC blocking the 12-team playoff.
Oh, really?
Those were the conferences that blocked the 12-team playoff, and they shot themselves in the foot. It was a really good article. I got to send it to you guys, but I read it last night during my insomnia. But I was just like, I read through it, and he was like, man, what a short-sighted decision on their part. Because now, when they have to vote on that again, guess who they're not considering?
I mean, really,
your vote just got a lot weaker. You're not going to be able to drive the process without your flagship school.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm going to let you jump in here, B. Will. I mean, do we even refer to this as the Power 5 anymore after this?
No,
it's really the Power 2 and the rest of y'all. It's like the Power 2, 3, and then the Group of 5. Like, what do you even consider the PAC, the Big 12, and the ACC at this point when you look at what the Big 10 and the SEC have become? But B. Will, go ahead and jump in here.
The ACC has kind of been like the Pac-12 East, honestly. The ACC hadn't been competitive. Clemson has been competitive, but the ACC has not.
Yeah, I mean, Wake had a decent year last year. Every now and then you'll always have like one other kind of upstart pro, but it's been Clemson's conference by and large. And and that's crazy is as dominant as Alabama has been, there's always been other very, very good teams in the SEC.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They've gotten knocked off of that perch for a national championship from Georgia stole one, LSU stole one, we stole one. We made it back to another one. This has all been on Nick Saban's watch. Since he had won his first national championship, another SEC school has bumped him off and won a national championship. And in that entire time, the only other team to step in and actually steal one on what has been a dynastic run by Saban has been Clemson, stole 2. Ohio State got their 1. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, Washington had their chance. Oh, too bad.
Blew it.
You blew it.
Oklahoma, Notre Dame
played them in a playoff, got blasted. Notre Dame played them, got blasted. Oklahoma played them, didn't get blasted, but you lost. I mean, there has been any argument by anybody from the PAC to say, well, we deserve and we're going to be, you get to get on this stage, which is one reason I always like the playoff. I like the playoff, the 14 playoff coming from the BCS. Even people love the BCS. I think the BCS got certain things wrong, but the thing that the BCS got wrong was it was only 2 teams. So you don't have to absolutely be the best team. You just have to be the best perceived team. And at the end of the season, you are one of 2 teams getting a shot, which is one thing I hated about it. So Alabama didn't necessarily have to prove they were one of the 2 best teams in a semifinal. They just got handed the hey man, you look pretty good. You're Alabama. Why not? And that's why the first playoff year they got run off the field by Ohio State. because their reputation, I want you to think about this. In 2014, Ohio State played Alabama in the semifinal. If that had been a normal BCS season, Florida State, coming off a championship and still being undefeated, would have played an Alabama team that had only lost one game.
Right.
They had won the SEC. That would have been Bama versus Florida State, Jimbo versus his old boss, and it would have been headlines with everything. And Ohio State had to like drill somebody by 60 points to get into the playoff because they had lost the game that year. Ohio State was the best team in the country that year. The playoff gave everybody an opportunity to show that you belong and that you could win a championship. Pac-12, you've been there, man. You did nothing. You did nothing on the big stage, which is another reason I've always got smoke for Lincoln Riley, because he was there like 3 times. Nothing. If you don't make it out of the semifinal, I do not want to hear anything about you.
B.
Nothing.
Will's prom list coming this month, by the way.
Oh, yes, it's coming this month. So the Pac doesn't have a leg to stand on as far as why they deserve to be in the picture. The thing that you should have absolutely been trying to do, I think, is expanding the playoff made sense. Why would you not go to 12? Why would you fight that? Because you give yourself an opportunity. Jump in there at 5. Jump in there at 6. And if you can put together a decent team for a season, you've got a chance to at least make some noise.
Right.
Get into a quarterfinal and get to prove against maybe somebody that's a traditional power. Hey, Clemson isn't as good this year, but they're in there at number 4. All right, well, you're number, 5 in Washington or USC, and now you get to knock off a more traditional, a more recent powerhouse to show, hey, we do belong on this stage. If you want to limit it to 4, you're boxing yourself out the paint. Why would you do that?
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, pretty short-sighted on their part, as Mike G said. I definitely would love to take a look at that article and kind of see the points that I did not realize that those 2 conferences were the big ones in the decision to say, nah, we don't want this.
Yeah, they blocked it. They blocked it,
which is crazy because those 2. I mean, I guess Clemson usually gets representation in the top 4, but the Pac is almost always getting pushed out of that.
Out of the current format. In the current format, they are not even the Pac champion has not been considered multiple years for a playoff berth. And their conferences that year that Oregon won the Pac by default, essentially. And there's just some really foolish things happen. And the best team, their flagship teams don't win enough, and they put mediocre teams out. And now USC, 2 of your biggest brand names are leaving. Good luck. That conference, their only hope is to merge with the Big 12 in some form of whatever's going to be left. Because you've lost Oklahoma and Texas, and so you got to get with TCU and those guys.
Yeah,
and you've got to figure out something that makes sense geographically, but that also gives you a case for entry into the playoffs. Since 2000, the SEC has 13 national champions by 5 different schools. 5 different teams have won national championships out of our conference. LSU, Florida, Auburn, Alabama, Georgia, all have gotten championships. And if you count appearances, it's domination, man. If you count national championship appearances, you've got to count 2013 Auburn, the couple times that Alabama lost it to Clemson, and you've got an SEC team there almost every year for the last.
Even the year where Bama played Georgia. Right.
Yeah, 20 years, right? Come on, man. There's the most appearances, and we're regularly winning on that stage as a conference. And contrary to popular belief, it's not all Alabama.
Right.
That stretch that we had where it was 7 or 8 straight years, a SEC team won the national title. We were on a crazy run. That's where the SEC chance started to kick up during this time. People were really sick of us. But if you were sick of us before, you're really gonna be sick of us now. Especially
it's gonna be disgusting, actually.
Yeah, with the big mouths over there in Austin joining the party and Oklahoma coming in. Come on, man. This is gonna be. This move by the Big Ten was about keeping up with what the SEC is doing, but I also think that behind the scenes there is a power move being made by these conference commissioners because they're going to control with NIL as well too. I think NIL is going to play into this. They're going to set the rules around how things are handled at the major college football level. And if you don't play by their rules, they don't have to play with you at all. They don't. They could shut out all these other conferences. Essentially, there's no incentive. I also read something by a West Virginia fan, and he posted about like how after they moved to the Big 12, after the Big East got destroyed, all their traditional rivalries got destroyed. All the teams that they cared about playing, Virginia Tech, every year it went away. And I think they haven't played Virginia Tech since like 2011 or something. And even though you add Oklahoma to the schedule, because you're in the Big 12, people don't care about that game the same way they care about their hometown rivalries.
Right.
They just don't. And I think that they know that in this new version of the SEC, there's no version of the SEC that is good for college football where Auburn and Alabama don't play every year.
Right.
None. You cannot destroy that. That is.
Yeah, I mean, that's like taking away Ohio State and Michigan out of the Big Ten's rivalry. So like, you just don't do that.
You can't do that. No matter how you grow that conference, you have to keep those rivalries together because they help make college football what it is. And they'll find a way to do that. But the conference realignment is going to destroy this for a lot of schools. And then there's going to be some schools left out in the cold. I think Oregon has enough name brand recognition to get somewhere.
Multiple sports, track, football, and basketball.
That's basketball.
They're a well-rounded academic and athletic institution. I think Oregon is valuable for somebody, but apparently
they got the money.
But that's true too. But apparently they said that Oregon and I think UW were kind of putting out feelers to the Big Ten, and the Big Ten said we're good for right now. So if it's going to come, and Oregon's going to jump ship and go somewhere, it's not going to be to the Big Ten anytime soon.
Yeah, I'm not. If I'm the Big Ten, I'm not taking Washington.
Like, how many schools can the Big Ten reasonably manage, though? Like, I mean, they're already a huge conference with a number.
They're
of people.
talking about super conferences of 20.
Right.
That's where a lot of people think that this ends, is super conferences of 20. And then what you're going to have to do is you're going to have a playoff within a playoff.
Right. Okay. So let's hold that thought right there, because this gets me to the conversation that I wanted to have around the future of the potential expansion of the playoffs. So let's get a quick word from one of our sponsors. We'll do our drawing, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about playoff expansion. And again, where does this factor into the SEC and the potential expansion for the future? Let's get a quick word from our guys at Chill Boys, though.
Treat your boys. Chill Boys underwear is designed for maximum comfort with enough space to keep you cool, calm, and comfortable. Chill Boys underwear will help you keep the boys close, not too close. When the game is on the line, you won't break a sweat with Chill Boys underwear. Whether it's left boy, right boy, or both boys, Chill Boys provides your boys comfort like you never felt. Maximize your chill with Chill Boys.
That was a quick word from our guys at Chill Boys. Make sure that you guys hit them up, code RAPPORT on their website to be able to get that discount right there. But speaking of things that you can put on your body, let's put some of this War Rapport gear on you. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments. GWT2 Energy Consulting Services sponsoring our giveaway today of this Weagle War Damn Eagle Kick 'em in the Butt Big Blue t-shirt design that you can get. Hashtag get your weight up in the comments to be able to do that entry. We are going to get into this. We have 54 entries right now. Who is going to be the lucky winner today? Today, we have winning a t-shirt, again, sponsored by GWT2 Energy Consulting Services, our guy, Richard Wentland. You have to be here, be present to win. So, Richard, if you are here, make sure you give us a shout. While we are waiting on Richard, we will hear one more word from another one of our great sponsors, and that is the Rogue Shop. And we will get back into our conversation about conference realignment and the future of the playoff.
This episode of the War Report is brought to you in part by Rogue Shop. Looking to reduce stress or improve your quality of sleep? Rogue Shop has you covered with a wide range of premium products, including gummies, bath salts, and oils. Go to rogueshop.com and use code RAPPORT when you check out. That way, they know we sent you. All right?
Our guy Richard is definitely here. He says hello. So, Richard, you know what you need to be doing, man. You need to be sending us your information. Send that over to business@thewarreport.com. We're going to need your address and your t-shirt size so we can get that out in the mail to you. Again, that comes courtesy of our folks at GWT2 Energy Consulting Services. Holla at them if you're in the restaurant business, and they will definitely appreciate that. All right. Let's get back into this conversation, guys. We are talking conference realignment. We are talking about the potential playoff, and B. Will had some thoughts on this. I will let you get this kicked off, sir.
I want to start. There's something that gets talked about a lot, right? We're talking about teams losing their traditional rivals, their geographic rivals.
Okay.
I don't think that has as much value as everybody says it does. And I will give you an example of how I know it doesn't. It has more to do with whether or not those teams are good and competitive, and those games are good and competitive. Texas A&M left the Big 12. They traditionally played Texas, right? It was a big deal. I think Texas and Texas Tech, those are their biggest rivals. They had a pre-existing relationship with Arkansas, right? Because Arkansas used to be in like the Big South with Texas. I'm not sure exactly how that worked, but Arkansas wasn't. They were originally playing either Texas or Texas A&M regularly. Y'all correct me in the chat if I'm wrong. Texas A&M came over to the SEC, and everyone's like, "Oh, we're not going to get to play Texas anymore." They started playing Bama. Johnny Manziel beat Bama year 1 or year 2, and since that time, that has been a more contentious rivalry than Texas and Texas A&M had been for like the last 5 years.
I don't know about that.
On top of that, let me give them. I'm not even.
Maybe ask some Texas A&M people about that. I don't agree with that at all. But okay.
Okay. Well, you know what? That's fair. Going from the outside looking in, there has been more sparks between Bama and A&M, mostly because it was initially competitive, and then Jimbo just won one. Now you throw the little flavor on there with Jimbo and Saban in the back and forth. A rivalry is being made because the two teams have some jostling going back and forth. I think that's more important to building a rivalry than, well, we used to play you every year. I don't think there's as much value in tradition as a lot of people. And when I say as much value, I mean, just because we've been doing a thing forever doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. Like that's something, and that's kind of human nature. We've been doing this for so long. Like, what's one of my things that I don't like about actual football is that people think playing outside in negative 20-degree weather somehow makes it more football-y than if we were playing in a dome. I want to execute this game, and those elements make it difficult, if not impossible, to execute the game. We are no longer playing the game. We're managing the elements. We can't pass the ball. We're running the ball, but the footing is terrible. The ground is harder, so people are breaking more bones. What about that makes it more football enjoyable or better executed? Nothing. It's just that football started in elements, so everybody thinks, well, traditionally this is how it's played. Yeah, but that's bad. Those elements make the game bad. Why are you okay with the game being bad just because we started playing the game this way? It's okay to move on from things that aren't really that good or aren't serving us anymore if there's a better option. And that is my submission to you, that Texas A&M and Texas has been trash for like 10 years. Absolute bottom-feeding trash. I'll even give you this. The win over LSU that we had last year to break a streak of losses at LSU didn't mean as much to me because they weren't good. Am I the only person that wants to beat somebody when they're good? Like when somebody beats us in 2012 and they wear their, we beat y'all 38-0. We were terrible. Is that a feather you want in your cap? I don't care that you beat us when we were bad. Beat us when we're good. Beat us when we got 10 wins and you're coming into Jordan Hare. That's impressive. Saban can't do that. That's impressive. Do I care that you beat us when we had 6 losses? No, that's not impressive. So all these years where Texas A&M has been over here, they've been competing and they've been losing. Don't get me wrong, because we are a better conference than the Big 12 was. The tradition that they had with Texas was based on, at some point, this was a competitive rivalry. For the last 10 years, it would not have been a competitive rivalry. what you lost there, I think you end up gaining more by being on a bigger stage with better teams, playing better coaches, and becoming a better program. They're not a better program than anybody in the SEC who is better than them. I think LSU is still overall a better program than Texas A&M. I think Bama is. I think we are, because what has Texas A&M won since they've been here? Nothing. We won the SEC since Texas A&M has been in here. I don't think there's nearly as much value in tradition. You have to look at what is going to be the best thing for us. However, it is weird that USC be affiliated with a conference thousands of miles away. That's just weird. I don't know that that serves you better, but when you can potentially bring in tens of millions of dollars more per year just in TV money, then you start doing some math. Tradition versus, 30 additional $1 million per year. And that's a decision that administrators are going to make, and conference commissioners are going to make, and the school administrators are going to make too. I mean, listen, man, they want that money too. So yeah. I'm not saying that all things that are old things are bad. I'm saying all things that are old things aren't necessarily good just because you're used to doing them.
No, that's 100% true.
I don't like the idea that I'm used to seeing.
Hold on, wait a minute. You're disagreeing that
I'm disagreeing with the point about Texas A&M. I think he's completely understated what that rivalry means to people in the state of Texas.
No, okay, I'm not. That's fair.
From the outside looking in, you may think, oh well, they haven't. I'm telling the hate and the vitriol that exists between those two schools and their fan bases when they play. You're talking about records and all that. They don't care about that when they play. That's what college football is. That's what you don't want to lose. It doesn't matter how, the beauty of it is it doesn't matter how bad each team is. The intensity around the game is still the same. To me, that's the beauty in a lot of those traditional rivalries. Texas A&M was definitely one of them, because you're talking about two schools who definitely have the resources, two very well-resourced schools. Now, the results on the field vary because there are a bunch of other variables. Coaching, you got to hire a good coach. They got the money for a good coach, but you miss sometimes. They sit in a hotbed of recruiting. And you had everything, some of the factors that make Auburn, Alabama what it is. You have a perceived little brother syndrome from one school, and you've got all these things that I wasn't watching that rival. It's not regional to me, but like when I talk to people I know from there, they like it was weird. They were very in between, because Texas's arrogance around football in general, it increased the vitriol there. So there was some satisfaction in saying, you know what, we took our ball and we went to the SEC. And then there was the other half of people that were just, you know what, but we don't get the satisfaction of being able to beat you when we have a good team. I don't think it matters whether you're good or you're bad in a really good traditional rivalry. It just doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, some of them, a bad team beating a good team, man, like that's a feather you definitely want in your cap. I don't care how good or bad Bama is. We want to beat them every single year. And I know they feel that way about Auburn. That same thing existed there. I'm not saying that there are a bunch of other rivalries in the country like that, but because we don't live in those areas, sometimes it's easy to underestimate, because the teams are not good, what those games mean to the people who live in those areas, to the businesses in those areas. And living out in Phoenix for a while, ASU and Arizona are trash in football, but they care about that stuff out there. It was just the Arizona, everywhere they go bear down, mm-hmm. And they say all the same stuff we do about, hey, where'd you get that ASU t-shirt? Walmart. It's all the same stuff. Now,
so they're not very witty out there,
right?
Guys.
Yeah. So
I hear you, but it still don't. It's not the same.
So while to me, I'm just like, okay, why are these two trash teams so worked up about all this trash football they're about to play? It matters to them.
Okay, well,
it doesn't have to matter to me. It matters to the people who live in those communities, man. I'm telling you.
I will grant you that, of course, it can and should matter to the people who are patrons of those institutions. However, there are rivalries that decide the national landscape. Auburn, Alabama has been that rivalry for the last 15 years. 2019, we won the Iron Bowl. After would have been a miserable season if we had not won the Iron Bowl. Maybe Gus Malzahn gets fired sooner. I'm not sure. But he wins that. That was Alabama's second loss that kept them out of the playoff. We altered the landscape of the national championship that year by winning our rivalry game. And we went on to lose to Minnesota. We weren't even that good. But we were able to change the national championship participants just by playing and winning our rivalry game. The same thing in 2013. They were on the way to another, because they would have beaten Missouri if they had won and we had lost that game. We have shaped some of Nick Saban's dynasty just by being here. That's a meaningful rivalry nationally. Texas and Texas A&M can't lay claim to that. That's what I mean by a very meaningful. So what's been better for Texas A&M's program, do you think? Staying there and beating up on Texas?
But there's not a lot of other rivalries that can lay claim to that outside of the SEC in general. So
That's right.
Just saying football outside the SEC doesn't matter, right?
That's
right.
That is exactly what I would be saying. I'm gonna jump in here and grab a couple of comments, then we'll get back into this conversation, because I do want to B. Will and I had a difference of agreement about whether this advances us towards an expansion of the playoff. Lawrence Robinson on the subject of this says the Big Ten now has 16 schools. When will they change the name of the conference? It is a poorly named conference at this point in time. I don't really understand what would
whoever
just
named the SEC, whoever named the SEC had some foresight, buddy. Because let me tell you, the Big 12, the Big 10, the Pac-12, no. At least the ACC and the SEC, no matter who you add and subtract, your name will stay the same.
As long as it's a geographic
Midwest,
thing,
right? Like Texas is Midwest.
Texas. Culturally,
Southwest, but
Southwest, yeah. Oklahoma's Midwest.
Phil jumps in, says Pac-12 should add Boise and Fresno.
Honestly, Fresno State has been a consistently good football team for like the last 8 years. Like I would be rushing to put them in, but it's not about just are you a good football team. The revenue is about football. Leaving the conference is about football, but who you add is about prestige and name recognition. Fresno State doesn't have that. Honestly, I don't think that many programs.
They can't. Beggars can't be choosers at this point in time. Either you want to try to get back up to 12 schools or you don't. So you just got to take who you can get. Walt Taylor jumps in here with the super chat. Appreciate it very much, sir. If we go to 20, what 4 do we add? Clemson, FSU, Georgia Tech to maintain the UJ rivalry, and who? Any thoughts?
North Carolina.
North Carolina. I would say Clemson, FSU.
That makes us a better basketball conference for sure.
Yeah, you take North Carolina. I
think Georgia Tech, because they've already got a natural rival in Georgia, Clemson with South Carolina, Florida State with Florida. North Carolina gives you a kind of secondary rivalry to both Clemson and South Carolina in football and basketball. I think that's a win. Geographically, it's all in the footprint. We don't have to look goofy by adding, somebody up in Nebraska or something like that.
If not Georgia Tech, do we consider taking Miami?
No, no.
Miami makes sense from a geographic standpoint. I don't know that they are a cultural fit anymore for what we would want as far as SEC schools.
Mm-hmm.
North Carolina honestly isn't. What do you do with Duke, North Carolina once you get that up out of there though?
But they can still schedule it out of conference, right?
Yeah, I mean they can, but you definitely lose that battle for the ACC type of feel that you're going to have with that. I don't know if North Carolina would consider that. It's a better revenue move for them, but I don't know if they would consider it for that standpoint. I think the other option that you might have out there would be to grab one of the other Texas schools, right? So maybe you get a TCU or somebody like that. I didn't say they were good. I was just saying as far as geographics. They could, but TCU plays SEC style football though. Like they're going to be heavy on defense. They're going to be about discipline and smash mouth, all that kind of thing. So
they have been with Gary Patterson, but he's not the coach anymore.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know where they're going to be going in the future. I don't know. That's a good thought there, Walt. Ben Bloodworth jumps in. Big Ten should rebrand to Coast to the Coast to Coast Conference. That is pretty much what they are right now. They are just a large mass of people out there. Ed Darby says, Clemson, North Carolina, Florida State, Miami, maybe Georgia Tech or Virginia Tech. as the other school. in there.
I almost kind of like the Virginia Tech idea.
Virginia Tech is a good one. Virginia
Yeah.
Tech's a good one.
I kind of
I'm
like.
not mad at
Virginia-
that. I think
add
Georgia
Virginia
Tech and Virginia Tech both add an academic component that the Southeastern Conference it would be a benefit. You start putting.
I could see Clemson, Florida State, Georgia Tech, and Virginia Tech as a good solid 4.
Yeah.
I know everybody's big on North Carolina or Miami. Neither one of those is super exciting for me. I say from a basketball standpoint, I definitely see North Carolina adding to the conference, but from football, it does nothing for me. So,
Oh, that's a good point, Ed. Both of those markets, though.
yeah, I don't disagree with the market situation.
Yeah.
I mean, but we already have a pretty. It's an arms race at this point in time, right? Like the Big Ten and the SEC are in an arms race to see who is going to be the more dominant ones. And it's the conference commissioners at this point in time are trying to one up one another. So we'll definitely see what happens there. Unfortunately, the ACC and the Pac-12 and the Big 12 just kind of have to sit there at the mercy of these two glaciers that are heading down. Lawrence Robinson jumps in. Which current G5 school will be able to move up to Power 5? Tulsa, Memphis, Coastal Carolina, Tulane are done if they can't move up. I don't know. It's a good question. We already talked. I mean, the Big 12 was talking about assimilating a couple of these schools into their situation, right?
They did, right? They added.
I mean,
Cincinnati,
in principle, Cincinnati and
UCF.
Yeah,
It was somebody
UCF
else
were
though.
supposed to be coming. I think Memphis was part of that conversation, and I forget what UAB actually just left their conference recently.
They went from
They went to whatever the old conference was that they were in Conference USA and they just moved to I forgot what the other. It's another Power 5. I'm assuming Group of 5.
Group of 5, yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what those Group of 5 schools do, because that's the other big thing in here. And this is kind of let me grab this one here. Alex Wilson with the super chat. Appreciate you. Could see SMU donors throwing in money to be in the SEC. Definitely could see that happening. Again, we're talking about footprint and then dollars. SMU definitely has it. It would help them from a recruiting standpoint because they do have the money. Then they would have the prestige of the SEC label along with them to be able to try to get back into the conversation. I could see that being a possibility. The problem that you have with SMU is they don't have a natural rivalry that allows for there to be. I mean, it's a fertile recruiting ground in Texas, of course. I just don't know that there's this natural tension that happens with SMU versus anybody who you would add them to the conference with.
Yeah, I don't think their money matters in terms of getting into the conference either. It's more about what they bring to the conference.
Right.
What do you bring to the conference?
Which is why the cash cow right now is who's going to be able to coax Notre Dame into the conversation. I mean, Notre Dame's the big one out there. That's the only other large program, and it makes more sense, honestly, for them to go to the Big Ten geographically.
Yeah.
But they have to give up their TV contract with NBC, I think.
Yeah, they do.
To join the conference.
Yeah, somebody said that at this point, because of the deals that are being negotiated behind the scenes for a super conference SEC in 2024 or the super conference Big Ten in 2024, that it's now trumping what that Notre Dame deal is. Like now on a yearly basis, the amount of income you get by being a part of these new TV contracts for these new conferences that are going to be huge with all these traditional powerhouses. Now it's dwarfing what that deal was when you signed it back in whatever, the 90s or whatever Notre Dame signed that deal.
They renewed it not too recently, but the deal to me wasn't even that good. It was, they want to be independent. So they got a deal. They bring in $15 million a year annually from their NBC deal.
That's it.
That's it.
Oh, wow.
That's what they're bringing in.
And who wants to watch Notre Dame? So there's your problem right there. So yeah, I mean, definitely a lot to talk about there. We'll get back into some more
their deal.
Chat comments here in a minute.
Their deal runs through 2025, and the Big Ten's current media deal ends in 2023.
Okay, so if they go, they'd have to out early.
They have to get out of their deal early. Yeah.
So interesting. I don't know. We'll see what happens there. So again, we were gonna, before we get out of here, just have a quick conversation about whether or not this moves the ball forward in the potential of an expansion of the playoff, or whether this hurts this. I argued that it could potentially hurt the expansion of the playoff because the conference title, however you do that, may have some sort of playoff structure, or the conference champion. It would just need to be the battle of the champions from the super conferences, as opposed to some sort of playoff. B. Will thinks that this may advance it. So I'll let you kick off your thoughts, and then I'll see what rebuttal I have for that. And then Mike G, you can definitely weigh in if you have any thoughts on it.
Okay, so my initial thoughts are, we're gonna have these two super conferences. What I'm looking at is the in-between time when USC and UCLA are in the Big Ten, and that will give them 16 total teams. Is that
Something
right?
like that, yeah. I think that's what Ben just said. The number was 16.
Mhm.
And when OU and Texas come into the fold in the SEC, we will have 16 total teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a little period between then and what we all expect to be a 20-team conference apiece.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the remaining time that both the Pac-12, the Big 12, well, and the ACC too, have to say, okay, well, listen, just hear me out. We can be competitive. Put us in the mix. They should have said that initially, because they had nothing to lose by being the 7th best team, but you're in a playoff, or the 10th best team if you're in a playoff, if it was a 12 team. Because if you say yes to that at that time, then yeah, Oregon might not win a championship, but if Oregon is number 7 and they win their first game in the playoff, that's a lot better than what you were looking at prior. Right now, they're on the outside looking in. So what they have is this period where those really big teams are gone. Texas is gone, Oklahoma's gone, USC is gone, UCLA is gone. And now you need to show that you are competitive, because the real contract that's going to affect everybody, that will turn it from group of 5 to group of 8 real quick, is when that national championship contract comes back up and it says, here are the teams that can play for a national championship. If you aren't in that mix, buddy, because I don't think there's anything officially saying Cincinnati cannot be added. Obviously, they were added to the football playoff.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, everybody can be considered for this. Realistically, if these powerhouses are all in 2 conferences, we grab Clemson, we grab I don't know, let's hypothetically, let's say Miami, 2 people who have the best chance of competing from that conference. Let's say Oregon and another team from the Pac goes to the Big Ten. Notre Dame goes one or the other. All of a sudden, those preseason polls start to lean towards only those 2 conferences.
Mm-hmm.
The coverage leans only towards those 2 conferences.
Mm-hmm.
The television coverage is only going to show those 2 conferences, and everybody else is going to be on Fubo TV and ESPN 6, hoping to get people who vote for Heisman and ranked teams, hoping to get some eyes on their product, and they will not be able to get it.
Agreed.
The only way you make that happen is between 2023-4, whenever the new teams get into these conferences, and whenever that college football playoff thing is up. You have to have these teams, the Pac-12, the Big 12, the ACC, look competitive with teams that are not USC, UCLA, Clemson, and the teams that we think might have a chance of coming to the SEC or the Big 10. That is your only shot, and that's why I think these teams, even in the interim, will go, okay, well, listen, we'll play ball now, okay? And we'll get our guys in at 8. We'll get our guys in at 9. We'll get our guys in at 10, whatever it takes. We will beat one of the super conferences teams in that 12-team playoff as justification that we belong on this stage. So when you're renegotiating, not this next one that's up in 2025, but the one after that, after those smaller, the people who lost their big dudes are now competing against those 2 super conferences, we need you to believe that we are worth keeping your eye on, that we are worth paying attention to. We need whoever's left. We need Washington to beat Michigan on a neutral field in a playoff. That's why I think they say okay to it, because now if they have no reason to justify that they belong on the big stage, they will be completely left out of the discussion as soon as those 20-team conferences are complete. Agreed.
And which is why I think they have absolutely no leverage in the conversation. You can say, hey, invite me to the party. I still have to care that you get an invitation. And I don't think the Big Ten and the SEC care anymore. They wanted to try to put more seats at the table, and everybody was like, nah, we're not doing that. And it's like, all right, fine. We'll just leave you out of the conversation altogether. I don't care. All right. If you didn't want to play ball when I gave you the opportunity, why should I care now? And I don't think they care. And I think that this hurts the opportunity for an expansion of the playoff, because they're going to feel like we're just going to settle it within our conferences. And then the winners from our two conferences go on to the national title. The group of five been screaming exactly what you're talking about will be the fate of the ACC, Pac-12, and the Big 12 for years. Hey, we deserve a chance. And you know what the Power Five said? Screw you guys. I don't care. You know what the TV network said? I don't care either. We're just going to continue to put the Power Five guys on TV. Now that we've got these two major conferences, they're going to keep saying the same thing. I don't care. You had your shot to make this work. You screwed it up. Why do I care now? You have no leverage in this conversation. You have no powerful entities to be able to sway anybody one way or the other. They do not care. Now, the Pac-12, the ACC, and the Big 12, yeah, they want to make this work. They don't have any leverage, though. The only leverage left in this entire thing, and this, if they're gonna swing their for the fences, they better do it in basketball. That's the only leverage any of these guys have left as far as TV contracts, et cetera, are concerned, is because that's the only other major athletic thing that gets big TV contracts.
Right.
I mean, you might be good in some of these other sports, but the TV contracts are what matter. The only thing they've got left is basketball.
Right. The Pac-12 usually has some okay basketball teams.
Yeah, that's it. That's all they have. They can't, but in football, you're done. You can't. We're not having this conversation about football anymore.
Yeah, because you were done before. Like,
right, you were barely in there before. You're done now.
Yeah, you're done. You're done now. And they still had the they still had an opportunity to make the playoff, but the margin for error for Pac schools was so much smaller than the other major conferences, because perception of play within that conference is just not good.
Yeah.
Again, this is only going to increase the SEC hate, but I just think this is a consolidation of power in college football.
For sure.
Right now, if you're Greg Sankey, you just picked up Oklahoma and Texas, and you've got a lot of the tradition, the big money, the big brands in college football in your conference. And that is a complete coup for them. And then the Big Ten, again, they were the only other conference that I think had enough, a mix of brands big enough to put something together that would challenge this. So, I mean, look at it. Adding USC and UCLA gets you in, again, that LA TV market. It's going to be rough, man. And I'll tell you, I don't know how many USC fans are going to be traveling to Penn State for away games.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it's going to be rough on travel.
Very tough
on travel. I think you're going to see lower attendance in terms of away team fans attending some of these games, because it's expensive. Travel is expensive right now.
Right.
And people aren't exactly post shut down in a position to just go drop a bunch of money on plane tickets and hotel rooms. And God, when we were talking about just going to Penn State, I was looking at it. I was like, man, I got to go in here. I got to rent a car. There are no hotel rooms in and around the universities, because a lot of times those are small towns with limited amount of hotel rooms, and they get blocked out quick. So you got to stay an hour away. It's already not easy. But
that's why you have to have national brands, though, right? Like, you have to have schools that have people in that area, right? Like, there are Auburn fans all over the country. People don't believe that, but that's true. There are Auburn fans all over the country. So when Auburn travels to your area, people are like, oh, they're finally close to me. I can go and watch my team play. That's what USC has. That's what UCLA has. Their fans from Southern California aren't going to make the trip, but the fans that are in the upper Northwest, or Northeast, that never get to see their team play are going to be salivating over it. They're going to be like, oh,
when I tell you that the 2013 national championship game in the Rose Bowl looked like a home game for Auburn, that was insane. And I know our fans travel well. It's a national title game.
Yeah.
But there's also a high concentration of Auburn grads within distance of Pasadena. So if not in California, Arizona, I'd see Auburn tags all the time when I lived in Phoenix. I mean, and that's only a 5-hour drive to get over there. So there were enough fans to Ike's point within driving distance that, some fans paid a bunch of money. Caesar was he flew out to Phoenix, and then we drove to Pasadena because they were jacking up plane flights from Birmingham to LA.
Yeah.
Knowing that Auburn fans were going to try to travel out there. But it's gonna be one of those things, man, where this is I just think what you're gonna see is a SEC playoff, a Big Ten playoff, and then everybody else is gonna cry that their guy didn't get in.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it's going to be interesting. There are two things, and I'll let you get the final word on this, B, before we get out of here. There are two things that I think are going to be interesting, and that is what this does to the regular season. Because if you're talking about having a conference playoff, how many games do you have in your regular season before that conference playoff is going to have to happen before you get a conference winner and then have to play an eventual national championship? And then the fact that we're even considering some sort of expansion of a playoff at all and having all of these very disparate places. That's why, the reason why basketball, number one, is difficult on fans is because, number one, you don't know where your team is going to be playing when it gets to tournament time, right? And so it's really hard to plan, and you just don't see, if you're not anticipating your team winning, you don't see your fans travel a lot because you're like, man, I didn't even think about Texas A&M just recently in the SEC championship. Their fans didn't think Texas A&M was going to get to the SEC title game in the championship, so they didn't travel to come to that tournament. They had a bunch of Kentucky and Auburn fans there. Neither team made it. I was there. I know in Tampa, you could throw a rock, and I guarantee you would hit a Kentucky or an Auburn fan. I promise you. They were everywhere in Tampa.
Yeah.
Texas A&M fans were nowhere to be seen because they didn't think that they were going to win. So when you talk about this national championship, the proliferation of Auburn fans in Pasadena, it was because it was a BCS national championship. You knew your team was playing for the title, right? If you don't know your team's playing for the title in the playoff, and you got to figure out in 2 weeks, oh man, we're actually going to make it to the title. Now fans have to figure out on 2 weeks' notice, how am I going to go get to support my team? So that's why the TV contracts become an even bigger thing because, well, people can't travel. They got to watch it on TV. So the other fallout from this, I think, is the bowl situation is going to become. I mean, bowl games are already super irrelevant. I don't know how bowl games maintain their relevancy with the super conferences situation.
And that is another reason why I thought the 12-team playoff worked so well. Because
I think it works. But again, leverage. Who has it? But anyway, I said I was going to give you last word. Go ahead and go on it.
If bowl games, so you got kids opting out because of course they don't want to risk their livelihood with their first contract is going to be in the NFL for an injury, and then for it's an exhibition game. We put a lot of when it goes on the coach's win-loss, but it's just an exhibition game. It is not very relevant now, especially you got two of your top 3 or 4 players sitting out because they don't want to get hurt. What kind of team is this? If I take the top 3 or 4 players off of any team, it's going to be different. I don't even know why it shouldn't. It's hard to say. Under the current circumstances, I don't think bowl games should count. If all your players aren't there, the players you've been playing with all year, okay. Well, if you're not here, then why are we playing? Everybody's gonna sit down. We just playing so we can practice for 4 weeks. NCAA, give us a rule so we can practice for 4 weeks. If I'm gonna play without my best players, then what are we even doing? But that's part of the problem with the bowl games now is they've lost all of their venom. All of the meaningfulness of bowl games is gone because people aren't just going out here to play for pride or, again, tradition is almost meaningless when you're telling me, okay, I'm going to lose how many million if I get hurt? What does tradition mean to me? I'm sitting out. Y'all have fun with that. I gave y'all a solid 3 years, 4 years, whatever. It's time for me to secure my future because I have played for this team for no income. Benefits, sure. Income, no. It's time for me to secure my income. I'm going to play, and I'm going to look out for myself.
Do you think NIL changes that at all?
NIL may change that. I wonder if there's any contractual language in NIL that rewards play for postseason games. I have no idea. If I have no idea. I don't know if you can keep a kid from opting out of that, but
I mean, you can't keep him from opting out, but let's just say it's like, this is a huge television game for your NIL guy. And you're like, no, you need to go out there and play.
That's against the current rules, though.
In what way?
NIL pay can't be contingent on playing in games.
No, I'm not saying it's contingent on it. My point is that you're saying that this is another contract opportunity. If your team qualifies for the Rose Bowl and you know it's a huge TV contract and you're like, hey, man, go out there and play, we'll give you an additional blah, blah, blah to advertise us in California next week because you're going to go make appearances at all these places. You're going to go do X, Y, Z for this. Go out there and push the brand a little bit more. You get a little extra check, but you got to make the trip with the team. You got to go play.
Yeah. I wonder how it's going to look.
That sounds iffy to me under the current rules.
There's a lot of things that sound iffy.
That sounds real iffy. Yeah. Like I'm not sure that would be allowed. But I know that they're clearing up what will and won't be allowed. So who knows what's going to be allowed in a year?
Yeah.
I wonder if some of those bowl sponsors will do NIL checks for the players that come. Like, so it's the Tostitos blah, blah, blah. And they're going to do some sort of Tostitos sponsorship for all the players that are like superstars for those teams.
Now, listen, bowl gifts have always been a thing. So
yeah, for sure.
So
but I'm saying, but they can't have the player rep that brand. I'm talking about a specific thing. It's going to be Tank Bigsby coming to play at your bowl game versus some high-touted person from some other school. So you're going to give Tank a kicker because he's coming to do that. And now he can do, like I said, appearances in town, boasting your brand. Like, not just give him gifts, but actually have him do ad reads for your thing or whatever. Like
a short-term NIL deal that isn't based on your participation at the school necessarily.
Oh, you're going to be at odds with coaches a lot, man. Like when you travel for a bowl game, coaches, depending on the game, Birmingham Bowl, maybe restrictions weren't so tight because so many of those guys like live in the state of Alabama and there wasn't a lot of travel. But when you go out of town, man, they control that experience. Every second of even your free time is designated. You got exactly 2 hours to go do this and that. They've got sponsor like events that they have to attend already. So like whoever the bowl game sponsor is, I remember we went to the Music City Bowl and they had like a bowl off between us and Wisconsin. And there are all these things that you have to do. Capital One Bowl, again, same thing. I mean, we got branded leather jackets and we had all these places that we had to be as a team. But the coaches are just like outside of those scheduled events. They don't want players getting in trouble or out. They reduce the probability of something happening to you while you're out. It doesn't even have to be trouble, man. It could be a car accident, like anything that might keep you from playing. I think you would meet some resistance from the coaches on that.
I mean, I guess my point is that they're having to figure out how to manage this right now with NIL and people having responsibilities to go and do and whatever. This is the reason why a lot of coaches are trying to figure out how to rein this in right now, because it's like I have less control over my athletes when they have contractual obligations outside of football.
So Pete, me again, I talked about power consolidation. Now that two conferences own a majority of the big profitable brands, I think you're going to see these guys get together and start to set their own rules around this stuff. I smell the death of the NCAA coming here with this, because you got your conference commissioners, and again they don't have any reason to play nice with anybody else at this point.
Right.
That's why I got to find that article to send to you guys. But like the PAC, that's why the PAC and the ACC, you played yourself.
Yeah.
You should have played ball, and your refusal to expand the playoff. These guys, and there's some pride and arrogance in it, but they're like, man, these mediocre ass conferences are holding up progress. So here's what we're going to do. Yeah. We're going to take your girlfriend, and then we're going to take her out to eat at your favorite spot, and you're going to like it. That's pretty much what they did.
She's going to post some pics on IG on her favorite meal. You're going to be sick. Oh,
right.
Look at this.
And they're using your credit card for it.
That sounds like an SEC Shorts skit.
They
You're welcome, by the way, if you want to use
the
that.
PAC, right? And then they took the hottest girls out of the PAC and just said, all right, now y'all the mid-conference.
So you know what, though? Okay, here's the one thing about two super conferences that I think does not work. And I think a couple of people have asked about it, but when it comes to a in-conference tournament, okay, that looks really weird all of a sudden, because unlike NFL football, These guys they got their bodies on the line. Yeah, we know that. They're getting paid a lot of money to have their bodies on the line, and even still not guaranteed enough for what they have to put up with physically. Soccer can do this because it's soccer. Basketball can do this. A little mid-season tournament or a pre-postseason tournament like what the NBA just instituted. In football, if conferences are going to be what they traditionally have been, you are playing through a conference schedule to come up with a conference champion. So the Big Ten has theirs. The SEC has theirs. Let's say it's Ohio State and Auburn. Kings of the Hill. Why would anything need to take place except for Ohio State versus Auburn that year? What are you doing about a postseason schedule that makes sense for two conferences who have pretty much the entirety of teams that would interest a college football audience? I think that now looks messier than ever, unless you want to just keep, we do all this and you get a 12-team playoff, but 9 out of the 12 teams are going to be from these super conferences. Like it makes the postseason more complicated. And
Yeah,
I
I mean, it
wonder
does.
how that looks. Like
I
I have
mean,
no
so,
idea how
like,
that looks.
I think the only thing that I would be looking at is from the super conference standpoint is, okay, if there's a clear you're the best team in this conference situation, but what if you're the 1A in the conference? It's like last year with Georgia and Alabama, right? It's clear that those were the two best teams in our conference, but they still needed to figure this. You needed a playoff structure to say, okay, these are the best two, but they haven't played head to head, right? The SEC championship game was their opportunity, really, which should have been a playoff game, right? Whoever wins this gets to go on and play somebody else. So that would be your conference tournament, or excuse me, your conference champions would then play each other for those two super conferences. So you would still have a quasi 4-team playoff just with those two super conferences. But the problem, I guess, the messiness in this for me is just going to be how you parse out the regular season, because if it's 20 teams, everybody's not going to play one another. So you don't really ever know, or do you only play within your division, right? Do you have a Big Ten or whatever they turn the coast to coast, as Ben Bloodworth suggested, the coast to coast West and the coast to coast East play amongst each other. The winners from those play each other in a conference championship game.
The conference playoff.
Right, but you don't. But do you have crossover games? Like what? How do you figure? Because it's going to be, if it's a 20-team league, right? That means you have 9 games from your side. You're going to have 1 or 2 cupcakes, and then maybe 1 crossover game. Again, I don't know how you parse out
football. Yeah,
I don't know how you parse that out. Is what I'm saying.
You would have to maybe shorten your SEC schedule by a game, and because I mean that would be just a lot of football. Do you do a 14 playoff? Right within the conference, and then you send. I mean, I don't know. It's really going to challenge the current playoff model if the conferences have to go to that. And then what's going to end up happening is we're going to get a 12-team playoff. That's what solves this. I think, to me, is that you send your conference champion, and then you have your at-larges that come and the WAC 10 and the big nothing.
The small 12, the WAC 10.
So their conference champions will be in there, and the rest will be super teams.
Yeah, the no CC, right? Like they can't. They'll have their shot to get their champions in as well, but they're still going to have to be like, they're going to get the crappiest seeds. I mean, can you imagine like some mid Oregon team is going to get put up against Alabama first go. So Alabama gets a bye. This is what's going to happen. And they'll still get their chance to prove, but they're not going to get preferential treatment in this new system, I don't think. So really short-sighted by those conference commissioners. And, the articles are being written right now about, I think the guy's name is Larry Scott as the PAC commissioner. And who is Bowlesby?
They're hammering this dude.
Bowlesby, I think Bowlesby is the Big 12 guy. Like, they are getting just destroyed right now because they just didn't have the foresight. They're waiting on things to happen to them. And the SEC is doing the exact opposite, right? They're paving the way. Wasn't there supposed to be like an ACC PAC alliance or something?
That was a Big 10.
Big 10 and PAC. And then they went and was like, hey, thank you for the idea of alliance. That means we're just going to steal your best assets and bring them to our side. That's what, when we said alliance, we actually meant we want USC and UCLA. Thanks. That's
Yeah.
what we meant.
Yeah, I think it. I mean, the playoff blocking explanation made a lot of sense to me. It's just you have guys who are weighing in on things that they think are in their best interest, but it's not in the best interest of college football, right? You know, you're thinking, I'm going to protect PAC institutions, and you actually expose yourself to them jumping to a conference that has more sway, and now you have less sway. So it doesn't make any sense to leave voting power in the PAC's hands on issues on where college football is going.
I think that's probably what happened is like they had all these conference commissioners and they got into a meeting together, and then like USC and UCLA was in the meeting with a bunch of these Big Ten folks, and they was like, y'all got what over here? What? And they, you know, they sitting here looking around, they like, hey, cuz. When we get done, come on. I want to have a quick conversation, man, because you know I didn't actually realize that your conference could be run better. Come get me.
That TV money is significantly more. Like the TV money they're about to get is going to be like it's going to be insane amount of money that they're going to make moving to the big. And I'll be interested to see how they handle West Coast kickoffs. You know, that was one of the things.
Yeah.
You know, this guy did. This one dude. He's again UW fan, so forgive him. But I was trying to explain the recruiting disadvantage that a lot of the West Coast schools have just because of the time they play. Like, I'm not staying up to watch USC most nights on the East Coast because those games
were happening at like 10 o'clock at night over here, man.
Right.
Like, what?
Or they're
staying up to watch this.
Starting at awkward times for the East Coast.
Right. Like 4 p.m. our time, you know.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It was really difficult to watch those schools, man, and stay up and watch. And they just have so many like geographical challenges, you know, versus the rest of the country that they needed to hold on to their flagship schools. They just did.
Because you have to, because again, when you're in that TV market, you just got rid of two of the biggest TV market guys, number one. And number two, you make the games more relevant for people nationally. Now, who cares when Arizona State is playing? Who cares? Who cares that Arizona State plays Washington? That game is so irrelevant. It's so irrelevant.
Let me tell you about PAC football. I living in Phoenix. The Arizona State is in Tempe. So Tempe is just part of like the Quad City area there. So it's not far. It was like a 6-mile drive from my apartment in downtown Phoenix. And I had a Michigan State friend who came to town and she wanted to go to the game. She was like, hey, let's play some golf. I'm going to get tickets to the ASU Michigan State game. I said, cool. So she buys tickets and we're going to go play a round of golf. And we go to this game. Michigan State was the number 12 team coming in that game. They were just bordering the top 10. So it was a big game for them. And this is my first time, like 6 years living in Phoenix, and I had never been to an ASU game because it just felt sacrilegious to go to another, you know what I mean? If my team's not playing, like I just felt like I couldn't go. But we get there, and you're playing the number 12 team in the country. 30 minutes before the game starts, I took a picture. The stadium is almost empty. Guys, like, I'm like, where are all the people? And they, you know, my Arizona friends were like, oh, well, we were down on Mill Ave drinking, Mike, and, you know, it's college, you should have fun. I'm like, this is the difference. And the UW guy jumped on me when I said this, you know, talking about, I was like, do you think that your school cares enough to be good? Because what you want is a conference to do the work for you. And most of these schools that are making these jumps, they're already making the investments into their athletic programs.
They're the ones holding the conference together. They're like, why do I want to do this by myself when I could just go revenue share with somebody
who's
and we
putting
can
in equal investment into their own program, right? So USC, we know they just dropped $95 million on Lincoln Riley. The commitment to football is there.
Right.
Show me Washington's commitment to football and explain to me why I'm splitting revenues with them.
Well, okay. So it's not that they're committed. USC is committed. USC has been bad, not because they weren't spending money on coaches or revenues or players. They couldn't get the right coach. so they couldn't get it together. Washington had a good coach in Chris Peterson, and they were competitive. They did win their conference. They did make it to a playoff. They didn't win it, but there's still a separation of classes there. They tried. How many coaches are around that are instantly, you hire this guy, you pay him the top buck for coach, and you're back in the running? Those guys aren't out there. So no matter how much some teams want to compete, there's still a cap on what you can do because you got to get the right coach. You still have to have some type of geographical or a tradition advantage. USC at least has that. They don't have. They have a geographical advantage.
Yeah, I guess
stuff.
my point is this is Washington is going to cost you more, right? Like it's you're Washington. Now we see this in the in pro sports as well too. Depending on where your team plays, when the decision happened, right? We heard LeBron Bosh told LeBron, I'm not gonna. I'll play with you, just not in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I'm not going to Cleveland. Wade was like, listen, man, I'm South Beach, baby. I ain't going to no Cleveland. And so they all ended up in Miami. That's a big thing for a lot of these athletes. They want to go play in decent markets with good weather and not girls. Like, why would I go to, again, overcast? So if you want your program to be good, your investment in the program, I guess my point B, has to be a little bit more than you have to try a little bit harder. So you got to pay. If you want a good coach, you're going to have to pay. And then you're going to have to pay double to keep him once he has a little bit of success so that he just does not jump to some place where it's much easier to build a program.
I think Cristobal was that.
That's exactly what happened to Oregon. That's exactly what happened.
Somebody from the SEC footprint who had coached at Alabama, who knew how to recruit, and even if they weren't the best team there, they still consistently.
He improved that team. He improved that
program. So he did what you want to do, but the problem is there's only one team for home for him. There's only one team that's more important than the one he had built, and that's the one that he played for, won championships for, and that was more his native. I think he talked about his mother being sick and she was there. He wanted to be close to home. That's where he's from. So why you can't keep him from that? Oregon did the right thing, but you're still going to lose because there's one place that's more important to a lot of people. I think so. I don't think the try is there. That's all I'm saying. The try is there, but you're ultimately going to lose unless you can win championships. That's the only thing. I think
the UW fans' problem was the distinction that Mike is making, or I'm taking it from, is not. It's not that I don't think your fans care. Yeah, you guys love your team and you love your blah blah. Do the people with the money
care
though? Because that's all that really matters. If the people with the money don't care, if they can't say to themselves, like that's the same situation we're facing right now at Auburn. The people with the money want to see a program that's winning games. So I'm not going to give you more money to squander if you're not going to use the money that we're already giving you, right?
But there's already a good amount of money in the program already, right?
Correct.
Like,
right. I'm saying there's more that could be those pocketbooks loosened. That same thing happened in Tuscaloosa. Listen, man, those boosters in Tuscaloosa didn't start loosening the purse strings until Saban started kicking some butt.
So when you got your good coach, that's when you have to that's when you have to politic and you have to parlay and you have to, if you're the athletic director, you have to get out and you got to start talking to your boosters and you got to say, hey, listen, we got a good coach. We're building something, but if we want to keep him because we're Washington, we got to pay. I need you guys to open the checkbooks a little bit or we're going to lose him to the next big program.
Right. Or do they turn and say, football's not that big a deal for my money. I'd rather put my money somewhere
That was
else.
A frustration that Auburn had with their coordinators for a really, really long time. We were a springboard to everybody getting their head coaching job for years and years in the early 2000s. Come to Auburn, but be a coordinator and get your next head coaching job after you had some success because you're going to get an opportunity to play against Alabama and LSU and the big boys and prove that you can do it. And somebody's going to hire you, right? Gene Chizik, I mean, think about it. Like he made a lateral move to Texas as a coordinator.
Right. And won a national championship with the same record. He had a spotless defense and national championship. We had a spotless defense here the year before, and we didn't even get in the game.
Right. So that's all I'm saying is that if the commitment from your administration is not there, that makes taking those programs. That's why I still think Oregon, if anything makes Oregon attractive, it's that they are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into their programs.
Right.
If you state-of-the-art football facilities, Outson, their football stadium it's loud. It's not very big. I think they seat about 60,000, but still you go there and the investment on their part is there. So if the Big Ten and I'm looking at them, I'm like, all right, this might be a worthwhile program that will add value to our brand because they are investing in themselves.
Right.
But I am not going to take on some program that treats their program half-ass just so they can water down the pool of money that I have to distribute to everybody.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
You do wonder then what happens with some of the, unfortunately, I hate to use the term bottom tier teams in some of these conferences, though, as we start to expand. Do they just say,
Like
we're going
to
Yeah, I'm saying, do we kick out Vandy? I mean, I know they give us this academic thing, but like, do you kick Vandy out and say, well, we really we want Florida State and Miami, but we don't have room for both of you if Vandy stays. So Vandy,
We're not kicking.
good
Vandy
luck.
out.
I'm just saying hypothetically.
Baseball and basketball, they still are more valuable than a couple other teams in our conference. So
Yeah. So I mean,
I'm really looking at Missouri, but I'm not going.
hey, that's the head scratcher right there. What do y'all do? What are y'all doing here?
They're AAU schools, so like,
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, we'll get this last super chat and then we'll get out of here. Ben Bloodworth, thanks for the super chat. Thoughts on replacing bowl games with head-to-head conference challenges like basketball does that makes stakes higher conference bragging rights?
I think that makes a lot of sense. Or you know what? Don't pick it the year before. Wait until the end of the season. So you've got your conference champion from each super conference. You've got maybe if you want to do a 14 playoff at the end of the super conference regular season, a 14 playoff within that conference. All right. So you've got your Final Four. The SEC has its Final Four. The two winners play, and you got your champions. Rank 2 through 6 by record in that conference. So the runner-up to the Big Ten champion plays the runner-up to the SEC. The number 3 team, whatever one of the teams in their 4th team lost, plays a number 3 like that. That makes so much more sense to me than, hey, what's a team that's close to where the bowl game is going to get played in the AAC playing one of the worst bowl qualifying teams, the SEC? That doesn't make any sense. SEC, Auburn playing Houston that year. Who cares? Is it, we get to play Auburn, and they're like, we get to play Houston. Honestly, I didn't care if it wasn't Auburn. If it wasn't Auburn, would have never turned on that game at all. Give me the big boys versus the big boys in order of importance. I want to see those teams play. You talk about conference superiority. That's how you figure out who's who.
Yeah. I like that idea. It's a pretty good deal. All right, man, we could talk about this for clearly hours. And there's definitely more to parse out as this goes forward. But we are sadly at the end of our broadcast for today. Mike G, talk to the people one more time about why this has been a good investment of their time, but maybe they should invest some of their money.
Hey, listen, first of all, shout out to our title sponsor, Athletic Architects. They are helping athletes get their financial futures in order, helping them start LLCs, grow their NIL brands. Athletic Architects, big shout out to our guy Jacob over there. They're doing great things. If you are an athlete or the parent of an athlete and you're looking to just get your financial future in order in this new landscape of NIL, reach out to us. We can get you in contact with Athletic Architects, but you can also go visit them at buildthehouse.com. Guys, we got Patreon memberships. You want one of these, I promise. We are producing a ton of content, and your support helps us continue to be able to produce even more content. So if you've been enjoying these player interviews, your support helps make that happen. Our patrons get early access to interviews as well as film reviews during the season and exclusive chats when news breaks and things happen. So please support us. We appreciate every single one of you that signs up. Upcoming building rapport series, speaking of which, this is live for patrons right now, is with defensive tackle Marquise Burks. Great guy, great kid. Just enjoyed talking to him. Go watch this interview. We're doing this all summer long. So we've got a few weeks more of these coming at you guys before we start fall camp. Marquise Burks, this will be live for everybody Thursday. Check us out on podcasts. We're on every single podcast platform. The Auburn Express, powered by the War Report. We got podcast exclusive content coming at you guys every Wednesday. We're partnering with the Lee County Humane Society to raise money for a good cause. So help us help them. Hashtag save all the puppies by donating today. You can find that link in the about section of our YouTube channel. And 50 cents on every dollar goes to them to help them in their mission to save every puppy they can. This is good that we've chosen to put back into the world. Please help us help them.
Yes, indeed. We appreciate everybody who has been sticking in with us for an extended version on the holiday weekend. You guys don't have to go to work tomorrow,
I ain't
so you
got
got a
nothing to
little
do.
time to spend with us. But we appreciate you. If you're watching this video right now, or maybe you're watching it later, go ahead and share that video. Add us on Twitter or wherever you're sharing, Facebook, at The War Report, hashtag Get Your Weight Up, so that we can continue this conversation. In fact, man, my guy B. Will, can you do me a favor?
What's that?
Can you put out a tweet on our thing that asks people, if we expand to 20, who are the 4 teams you want to see? And we're going to continue the conversation on Twitter today. So you guys go over to our Twitter. We'll continue this conversation about conference expansion and the SEC super conference potential. Also, if you are watching the video and you haven't liked already, go ahead and give us a thumbs up on the video. You could thumbs down if you really want to, but then you just be a hater because it was awesome. Subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, and make sure that you know when we are going live by hitting that notification bell. We are The War Report on Instagram and Twitter, TW Report on TikTok. That's it, guys. We are signing off until the next time. And as always, War Eagle, and we will holla at y'all the next time around.